All right, part two, Gallows frickin' Pole. So then what happens is you have Jimmy, you have a sort of a right around that time of the 315 changeover of the pattern, which I'm calling it. It might not have been a conscious changeover. Maybe they cut the tape together, whatever. You have the... Okay? You have the guys going, doing that, starting between what I'm calling the 2 and the 3. And then, I don't know. You have that going on. You have the... You have that starts going on there, and it gets a little kind of tricky to follow in there. But then Bonham, of course, starts doing his usual Bonham-y stuff. Remember how I said, 100 million times that Bonham has the... He loves that. Okay, well, again, in this song, he has a little thing in there that he, very briefly, he does. So he's like, and this is where it gets kind of complicated, because again, he might have played it. It's possible that Jimmy Page, when he did duct tape it together, because logic, Bonham-y logic would dictate like 1, 2. Hear that? That's that turnaround. Except that it's not that obvious. If he's doing it two-handed, it'd be like. Notes are still of that pattern. The only one that's a little moved is the first one. It's the E of 3 or the E of 1. However you decide if there's an edit there or not. So 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. He does that in there, and I think that one actually comes later. That one might be around like the 430 mark. But again, it's real obscure. And with all that stuff going on with the bass, with that devilish John Paul Jones playing that riff, and then of course the guys adding that stuff. It's like this big blur of like funky, crazy time horror show. So, Bonham is playing that. And again, this is hard really for me to explain, especially here without the music going. But to be totally honest, if the music's going, even I'd get a little funky with it. I'd kind of be like, because very easily you kind of, especially when Bonham starts going. But that pattern happens in a place which is like slid over a note. So then it's really hard to follow. I'm just telling you honestly. But the two things he does there, besides the... does through that whole wacky part, he does have a little spot, and I think it happens 4 times at first, and then like 2 or 3 times later. Now the later one, I should say this, the later one is the... That's one that occurs in like the 430 range. What happens about 405-ish to about 420 is he doesn't do the... leaves that first note out. So it's... He goes... Or... whether he's playing the whole song, which he probably is. I'm just doing it this way though, because I think it's easier for you to hear. Again, the way this is mic'd, we just had that mic in the camera. This is real loud. Okay. Again, he probably is on the recording playing it. Okay. But it's just loud, just for simplicity's sake. Because again, God knows that when you see Zeppelin. Or Jimmy Page and Robert playing it later, Michael, or me, I think his name's Michael East, he's cranking it on the snare drum. Anybody play, and when people play this, here's the thing, when people play this song live, even Bonham himself, I don't know, but they don't do like all that really crazy funky shit at the end of the tune. Doesn't go down the way it does on the recording, which makes me think that there might have been like a drum edit in there, maybe unknowingly, like Jimmy Page is like, oh, we need another minute and a half in the song, and he just took a click of Bonham playing that pattern with his little things, but he might have joined it at an awkward place so his shit sounds like it's in a real cool place or a funky place. I'm not taking away from Bonham. That very easily could have happened. But maybe not. Maybe he did just play it that way. But I'm just saying that those little turnarounds that occur later in the song, about like, 405-ish to like 420, 425, those are kind of in a funny place. Like they're sort of, the whole pattern sort of moved over a whole quarter note, so it's really funky. It's really hard for me to reproduce here without the music. And then of course later he does that like twice very later in the song, like almost toward the end. Okay, so that's really it. Now again, again, there's the easy way of looking at it. If you just want to play the whole song, play the whole song. You see a lot of people on YouTube. That's the way they play the whole song. There's none of that crazy, wacky stuff that happens at the end. But I'm just talking about the studio, the evil studio recording. And just to give you an example of what I'm talking about with just so you know, and here's a way of, in the end of Sick Again, here's an example. Here's a good example. Sick Again off Physical Graffiti. An inversion happens there that Jimmy Page and those guys do on purpose. It throws the feel of the song off. And without thinking about it, you don't even realize it happens, okay? At the end of Sick Again, he goes, you have the da-da-da-da-da, and you go, ba-da-bum-ba-da-bum-ba. But then Bonham goes into a pattern. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da. To Sick Again, you'll know what I'm talking about. And hey, again, there's the for the 900th billionth time. And in fact, of Sick Again really is the pattern we're talking about in Gallows Pole. It's no coincidence. Bonham loved that turnaround. All right, so now we're getting somewhere. I know this sound is confusing. It's confusing me, and I'm sure I might be overcomplicating this whole thing, but if you're a diehard Zeppelin guy like me and you really analyze the recording, this is how it turns out. So anyway, Sick Again, to show you what I mean about Jimmy Page and, these guys wanting just to, fool around with the perception of where the one is and stuff, upbeat, downbeat kind of thing. So, okay, what they do is then Robert Plant starts singing, except what they do is that is added at a point on the upbeat, like it comes in just slid over a little, so the song goes, to suddenly this feel, understand is it's not that Bonham goes he doesn't change the beat. Bonham's just the whole time playing, but where they add in, where Robert Plant starts singing or they fly him, where they put him in there, it changes the whole perception of the beat. Listen to the end of Sick Again, you'll know what I'm talking about. They did that on purpose. It was very clever. I mean, Zeppelin, and part of the reason why I love them so much, that stuff is very clever. It's very, again, it's sort of the, you can have that unintentionally, like I said in the first video, happen if you get into the car or whatever and you turn a song on, and it's a straight 4/4 song, but you're not really paying attention. There might be a little turn or a fill, but you come in and just for whatever reason, your brain picks up the melody first of the song, and you assume that the melody's starting a different way, and suddenly you hear the drums, and the drums sound like they're playing a weird syncopation, but then it dawns on you it's a familiar song, and it's just playing regular time. I'm sure that's happened to people before. I know it's happened to me. But it's that kind of thing. It's that when you first perceive something, and then it's different, and when you first perceive it, it's the coolest thing, it's so strange, it's so unusual. That kind of a mental thing happens. Even for me, as a quick aside, with Misty Mountain Hop, the beginning of Misty Mountain Hop, the recording. Da 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 da. Okay, but when I hear that song, even now, if you count because there's the little startup before the downbeat. Da 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 da. That. Da 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 da. If you're not paying attention, you play it. Da da ba 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 ba. It can create the illusion that it's this funky, crazy, but it's not. You're just perceiving it wrong at first. And if nobody's ever heard the song that way, I know I have. Okay? But the point I'm trying to make is sometimes perceptions can lead to different things, which can happen intentionally or unintentionally. Definitely intentionally at the end of Sick Again. I think unintentionally at the beginning of Rock and Roll, just because you're not sure where the one is when he starts. Maybe they did that on purpose. Maybe when they first recorded the tune, maybe Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones were playing along with the Bonham. Da 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 da. Maybe they did play that, but then they thought, oh, screw it, let's leave that part. Let's leave the drums there, and then suddenly we have what you have. You don't know. But anyway, back to Gallows Pole. What I played, that is the stuff Bonham's playing, and it gets wacky at the end. So, and a lot of people, there's a lot of guys that might make drum videos who wouldn't even mention all that end stuff. They might just be like, and if at the end he starts doing all that Bonham stuff. Well, he does start doing all that Bonham stuff. But it's either A, everything's moved over a little because maybe an edit, maybe Jimmy Page joined the tape, or it is played exactly all the way through as Bonham played it. But he's, of course, John Bonham, for the love of God, and he did throw all those except that, again, even those patterns here, when I'm playing those, it's like I'm playing 1, 2, 3, boom, 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 1, 2, 3. In that outro, that pattern is not played on the 1, 2, 3. The pattern is, if you count it, actually starts. The first solid beat is on the 4 and goes 1, 2, and then the play around space is on the 3. I know this is overly complicated, but the song is. So that's Gallows Pole. You wanted it, you got it. The funny thing about Gallows Pole, I wasn't a huge Gallows Pole fan growing up. It's not that I disliked it. It definitely had the cool Zeppelin-y sound with the guitars and stuff. But to me, it just kind of was grating. It just kind of went on and on. So before I made this video, I listened to it a bunch of times. And I was kind of like, wow, all this stuff. And I really did analyze the end of it, So that's kind of how, anyway. So there's the video, okay?